is 4:31 and I am calling the Board of Finance to order. The mayor is away, so you are stuck with me for this meeting. I believe she is joining City Council remotely. We do have a quorum and we do have Councilor Travers online and he is parking, so he should be in the room shortly. And also noting that we have Assistant City Attorney Eric Ramakrishnan staffing the City Attorney's office remotely for us tonight. And with that said, I think we are ready for a motion to adopt the agenda. So I have such a motion.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Is there a second? Second. Councilor Carpenter. Any further comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. And we will move on to public forum, as is the practice of this body. We will start in the room. Is there anyone in the room who would like to address the board? Seeing no one, we will go online, and we have former Councilor Sharon Busher, and I have just enabled you to talk. Go ahead, Sharon.
Okay, thank you so much, Catherine. I had sent for the members of the Board of Finance, I sent a communication because I had some questions about what was a very complete communication regarding Oracle and that transition to a new system that will provide coordination between the cities, all city departments, and Burlington Electric also. And I think it would be a time saver. I think it will also cost effective because a lot of employees are spending time transferring or transcribing information from one system into another. So I applaud you on this. I know it's expensive. I always worry about that. So I asked some questions that I couldn't tweeze out for myself about annual costs and if training was included. And so Catherine responded to me, and I just read it now, so I didn't have a chance to respond to her electronically. But I totally support this. I hope that for the residents of Burlington also who want to understand there are some in Ward 1 that actually pay close attention to the Board of Finance. I know I weigh in, but there are others who I think track far closer than I. And I think there are other residents also. So I'm hoping that for the users that aren't part of the administration and the City Council, that it will be easier for us to find out information. But that's it. You've got a lengthy agenda. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everything that you've done.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak at public forum? Seeing no one, we will go ahead and close public forum. And the next item is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
To adopt consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilor Travers, any further comments or questions on the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to our first item on the deliberative agenda. And as we welcome Director Danko up, this is a Youth Services Department reorganization and reclassification of the Early Literacy Outreach Coordinator. Can you give us a brief overview, Mary?
Sure. So, as you know, we've always, we've been tasked as department has to always look for opportunities when we can think about making our departments more efficient and just ways of making good changes. And this came about because we actually had a staff member that asked us if they could go to part-time. And so this really gave us an opportunity to meet that person's wishes and at the same time bring someone up who was at a level 10. They were the early literacy outreach program coordinator. I'm sorry, a grade 10. And they, have the capacity to take on more responsibilities in the youth department. So to make that grade a 13. I really appreciate all the hard work that the mayor's office and HR helped to support me on this, because what happens often in these cases, which did in this case, is there's a lot of moving parts. So it really made sense to make the person who wanted the change to the halftime to a lower grade. And then the person who was in that other position moved them up a grade. And what this does, which I think is important in organizations, is it gives a ladder when somebody enters into the library to move up. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to add to it, but it has just flew out of my head. So I'll take any questions.
Excellent. Any questions from the board? All right, are we ready for a motion?
On the person that's going to halftime, you're reducing their grade,
Yes.
but not their salary.
They will have a little bit of reduction in
Okay.
salary too, because they'll be going down a grade. So they'll go from a 15 to a 14. The person who's in the 14 will go to the 15.
Okay.
I'll just say briefly, because I know we have a long agenda. Thank you for bringing this forward. Thanks to our HR counterparts for putting it together. I am supportive of this because the individual who was in a full-time position requested to go to a halftime schedule. I think that if we were looking at this otherwise, the work that's done by our youth services program, I'm sure there's so much more that could be done, is so essential to our city, to our kids. I would be hard pressed to support going this direction, but for this individual asking them to move to halftime. Somewhat serendipitous, and it now allows us the opportunity for us to expand other opportunities, other directions. I appreciate your thinking about this creatively. However, looking towards the future, right? And whenever this individual leaves the city, hopefully no time soon, but years down the line, I could envision this being a full-time role again. Perhaps someone in the future won't want necessarily a halftime position, and hopefully won't hesitate in continuing to bring this back if that's what's necessary in order to recruit a future holder of this position. I don't know if it forever can necessarily be a 0.5 FTE.
I totally agree, and I would do that.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
Just along that same line, and it's really more generic, which is, I think, looking in the city for opportunities like this. And I don't disagree with Ben. I mean, you need the job to reflect the amount of work. On the other hand, given our workforce challenges out there in the big wide world, there may be more mature workers who actually don't want to work. Right? So I just encourage, I'm sort of saying this more to HR generally, that we should look at those opportunities and both within our workforce and then just generally I know the voluntary furlough didn't answer that, but in my opinion, the way it was phrased didn't quite get there. And so I think looking at, are there part-time opportunities voluntarily, fitting the workload, all that good stuff, we should.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think the library is one of the departments that has the largest number of part-timers too, because we're open 7 days a week
Yeah.
and 2 evenings. We have a lot of part-timers on our search staff. And yes, and I love the fact that it brings in a real diversity into our workforce.
All right, are we ready for a motion?
I move to take the actions indicated on Civic Clerk.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
All right, and we are moving on to the second item, which is a Church Street Marketplace item with an authorization to award a lease. And we have Director Samantha Liggins here. Why don't you give us a quick overview of this, if you don't mind?
As you may remember, the 2 properties on the Church Street Marketplace. The first is 62 Church, where Wynn Boutique is located right now, and the second is the Lunix kiosk. The Lunix kiosk has been in a 10-year contract with the city for that space. That comes to a close at the end of July. We had an RFP open in February for a new tenant for that space. Lunix is no longer interested in operating that space. We received 4 applications that were complete for that RFP. Reviewed the RFP with a committee of community members, commission members, and city staff, and selected Sabah's House as the new tenant to recommend to the Tertiary Marketplace Commission. The commission reviewed this in March and approved Sabah's House to be the next tenant for this space. It is a 3-year lease with the option of a 2-year extension. If both parties are interested in continuing on.
Are there any questions or comments before we move to a motion?
Yeah, hopefully they're Middle Eastern cuisine, but they're also gonna have a lot of American classics. So it'll be a good mix of food. Family-run business. They have a lot of energy and excitement for the space. They started out vending at the B2B market, and then they were a cart vendor on the Tertiary Marketplace. So kind of another stepping stone for them would be operating states.
Excellent. We ready for a motion? Yeah, Councilor Barlow.
I'm glad to hear they'll have coffee, so I was gonna ask.
Most important.
But I would make the motion as indicated. So,
Excellent. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. I am noting that Councilor Newbeezer is joined us on Zoom. Sorry, while I'm trying to do both roles, I think he's been there for a minute, so I missed him. Sorry, Councilor Newbeezer, but I have promoted you. You are in the record. It looks like we're ready to vote. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, on to item 4.3, authorization for refinancing of the city of Burlington's 18.8 million general obligation waterfront tax increment note. Don't rush up here all at once. Brad will be coming
I would
up.
be happy to.
Yes.
I'm happy to join.
Yeah,
Great,
please.
DFA, as you can see, this is a joint DFA,
May
CEDO.
not find roles.
Yes. And I will just start off by saying, if this seems familiar, that is because we have come before this body, I think 3 other times. And we have asked for a 1-year term of financing to get us through some tricky points of this project. And so we are now pleased to say this is a long-term bond and represents a big step for this project. There's not a lot to discuss, but it is an important milestone. And so Brad and Cara, what would you like to add for a quick overview?
Certainly, thank you, Catherine. So, as mentioned, we have done 3 years of 1-year short-term financing to ensure that the public improvements and other financing related costs have a cash flow for the waterfront tip district, namely the project for City Place Partners, which it's Burlington Square or the Burlington Square.
I still call them city
City
place.
Place.
Most notably, it's the reconnection of St. Paul and Pine Street. So taking them 1 block further is the tip portion of that project.
Over the last few years, it was, we've been requested by the developers to do short-term borrowing until they had secured some portions of their own project financing cost, which has since come to fruition this year or will be imminent. And we have received enough indication that all of our city costs will be fully covered, all of our borrowing short-term costs that have accrued up to this point have been covered by the developer. And now we are just seeking the long-term bonding capacity to finish this project.
I will also note that the state Pepsi has indicated that they would like us to have long-term bonding on this, so this is positively viewed by them. While the South Tower did commence without firm financing in place, that has since been secured. And they are looking to close on the financing for the North Tower, which, as you can see, already has vertical construction. That should be closing at the end of this month. So all those indications, as well as the push from Pepsi, has landed us here, and we think we're ready to do longer term financing on this project now.
And the last, I think, cash flow piece is that our kind of financial analyst at White & Berg, as well as our financing advisors at PF Advisors, and our bond counsel, who's Thomas Maloney and Kathy Sue over at Paul Frank and Collins, in coordination with our city team, we're able to set the terms of this contract such that the cash flow for the increment will always be sufficient to pay the debt service, and that we wouldn't be incurring additional city debt service costs through the life of this.
Correct.
I think that's all of the high level work details.
Excellent. Are there, excuse me, any questions? Yes, Councilor Barlow.
Thank you for the presentation. It's a 20-year bond? Is that what
It's a 10-year.
10-year bond. And is 6% like the prevailing rate right now? I noticed that was
Yeah.
We won't know the actual rate until we hit the market, just to be clear. Yeah.
Yes, so that is,
I think the 6% we're viewing as sort of our worst case scenario, but given our good credit rating at the moment, we're thinking that this will be well received in the municipal bond market.
yeah, we did have some questions and responses from our advisor at Moody's, who will rate this bond in particular. I think based on our conversations, we were able to satisfy their questions appropriately. I tend to agree that our 6% might be on the higher side of what we will actually see at market, but we'll know, I believe, in approximately 2 to 3 weeks what our actual rate is.
okay. Thank you.
Yes. Councilor Barlow.
Is there disadvantage right now of going to long term as opposed to staying with short term, which I assume has lower rates?
It does have lower rate at the moment, but you do expose yourself to the volatility of the market, which is why Pepsi wanted us to sort of lock in financing, and then we can do our increment projections and set our standards for paying back a little more regular, like a little more structurally in advance, and really feel secure about that. So they're really, while it seems like a great deal to do it year by year, you do open yourself up to a lot of risk. It's safer for us to.
No, I understand. A 10-year bond is less risky than a 20-year bond,
Yeah.
but I just was curious, what are the rates now? More or less.
For a 10-year municipal with our credit rating, I don't have that off the top of my head.
We can get back to you.
Will you sell us in the open market, or do you have any private placement options?
We don't do private
We don't.
placements to the best of
That's
my
right.
knowledge for this, yeah.
Swear to that.
Yeah, this will be in the muni market.
Any other questions? All right, are we ready for a motion? Yes. Councilor Barlow.
I'll move to approve and recommend the city council waive the reading and approve the proposed resolution to authorize refinancing for Waterfront and issuance of long-term bonds series 2026.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further conversation? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously, thanks to DFA and CEDO. And Brad, you can stay where you are. I will also invite Tracy Isham, our Revenue Operations Manager, up here. The next item does not have an action item, but I wanted to put it in the middle so we did not run out of time for it because it is an important item. Are you gonna share your screen or are you gonna just talk to?
I can join Zoom and share screen.
Great, I will do my best to filibuster in the spirit of the mayor to give you time to do that.
Yes.
So this item is an update on collections, which is something we have been talking about in the spirit of the FY 27 budget. And so specifically tonight, we are going to talk about collection of property taxes and of gross receipts. And this is something that Tracy and her mighty team of two, that includes herself, are responsible for overseeing. And it's something that we have been putting in quite a bit of work into making sure we have robust systems and everyone who needs to be paying the city is paying the city. And this is really to report back on that work. And we are almost
There.
yes, let me just give you. All right, you should be able to share your screen and we will dive into this quick presentation.
While we're waiting,
Yeah.
I think I made my motion based on the memo, last item.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a note. It says, I said it was series 2026. It's a specific call out in the title on the agenda that says, no, series 2025, so I don't know if you've heard the motion.
I am noting that the motion on here says 2025, and I am noting that that is what we meant to do.
No, it's says 26.
The memo does. Okay, I will make sure we change that. Got it.
Good filibuster.
Yes.
So, as Catherine mentioned, we have looked into our property tax and gross receipts collections in total, among other areas, but tonight we wanted to just give you an update on these two. Tracy, in addition to handling the property taxes and revenue operations, surrounding gross receipts among other things, has been acting as the interim assessor, so she gets to sit on many sides of the table in this discussion, and we worked with Assistant City Attorney Eric as well. So the opening page will show that we have almost $2 million of outstanding delinquent property taxes. There is an indication of how they grow by year or basically drop off over time or through collections or payment plans or what have you, in the graph at the bottom. But it is a multi-year, delinquency list that spans pretty much all the way back to 1989 in certain instances, but for the purposes of our current update, we've looked mostly at the preceding 5 years, or 6 years if you include 2026 as well. The statute of limitations gives the city the opportunity to collect delinquent property taxes up to 15 years, which includes all methods up to a tax sale, and there is a minimum set at a tax sale of $1,500. We wanted to give you a breakdown of tax sale eligible parcels as we are intending to proceed with these certain, I don't know, parcels for tax sale. But we have 14 of all of our delinquents, we have 14 parcel owners in an active payment plan, and that represents about a third of the overall delinquency. We have 20 with another third of the outstanding amount that will be queued for a tax sale. And then a large other category which really has to deal with primarily with the McNeil joint owners and a long-standing tax issue that's currently pending the Board of Abatement, but it was a large chunk and I want to just call that out. But really for the purposes of our update, we are focused on the no plan proceeding to tax sale section of delinquency list. There are certain requirements for tax sale eligibility, as I said, $1,500 minimum of an owed taxes. They have to be delinquent greater than or equal to 1 year. That is different for mobile homes, which has a delinquency of delinquency requirement of 2 years. We must offer a payment plan, and in many cases, we offer many payment plans. And there are some legal protections that apply in our current list of parcels that will be seeking remuneration through tax sale. These specific exceptions are applicable, but they are typical. We have it's just what looks like a brief 4-point process, but it actually is quite extensive and back and forth with Tracy and her team, as well as the city attorney's office. We offer payment plans. So for those folks or entities that are delinquent and we are seeking a tax sale, we have offered payment plans to them that has gone either unacknowledged or has not made progress towards tax sale payment plan on the books. And those 20 parcels we've referred to outside council for the remaining portion of the process, which would be a warrant extension, a 30-day notice, a 3 weeks public notice, title searches, and holder notification. And then the final stage of the process is to actually execute the tax sale. And those revenues have been expected and have been in some cases booked in our FY27 budget, but in some cases will carry into fiscal 28 depending on time. Before we move on to gross receipts, do you have any questions? Tax and tax sale and any of this update that we provided so far?
Yes, Councilor Barlow and then Councilor Carpenter.
I have 2 questions. I guess one is about the legal notice process, are you in all cases able to make contact with the property owners? And are you have a level of certainty that they're aware that this is happening? Or are there any ones that aren't communicating?
So that'll be the next step with our attorneys, so we've in our process of doing this. Yes, I believe that they have to have certified mail. They have to have a signature from the property owner. But we're not quite at that stage yet, so I'm not sure exactly what they need to do, but I can research and get back to you.
I can
Go ahead.
offer
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
some insight. I mean, number one, there will be recorded and published notice, and as Tracy indicated, owners will receive notice by certified mail. There are federal constitutional requirements too that if we have reason to actually know that somebody didn't receive their mail, we have to make some reasonable additional attempt to notify up to and including posting a notice at the property itself. The US Supreme Court has said that it's not our job to make absolute certain that everybody has received notice, but we also can't just ignore a return to sender. We have to reasonably try to give notice to everybody we can. And if we can't, that's why notice is also published and recorded.
Thank you. And my second question was around the amount of revenue that we're anticipating in our FY 27 budget. If we're anticipating the revenue, that then we can come to terms on some payment plan between now and then. That seems like there's a lot of sort of squishiness to that FY 27. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
That's technical.
Our payment plan does have to be a 2-year plan, so it won't extend past the time period.
And so I am happy to get back to you with specifics, but that essentially, what we have done as we build those estimates is to take the payment plans that we already have and essentially base it off of that. Like, how much do we know that we have in the bank, assuming that people pay their obligations to us, of what is left to be paid in FY 27. So we have, pretty good numbers for that.
The list, while the numbers are large, the list of parcels and folks that we have to kind of analyze the timing of is small enough that we can, I think with a decent amount of confidence year over year say, yeah, we think this is gonna come in, sure this is gonna do kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Carpenter.
I'm just curious, are you the primary contact with the property owner? Or is there an intermediary at all? I mean, one of the problems, we've spent a lot of time with this at BHFA, and the property owners, first of all, didn't know that their mortgagee would help them. And so they just stopped paying, even though the mortgagee would step in. Second of all, they didn't realize how much equity they're losing by just not paying. And so we had to spend a lot of time saying, call your mortgagee, and maybe the best thing your goal is to figure out how to sell it, because otherwise you're gonna lose all your equity. And I just, whose role is that?
It's both student,
Yeah.
right up there, yes, receivable team, and we do try to work as much as we can to pay that, and stuff.
I do want to emphasize that we do have to sort of be careful how we have those communications, because we can't be giving people legal or financial advice. They do sort of have to figure out their legal and financial situation for themselves. But before they go to tax sale, they've received multiple offers for a tax payment plan, and then the official noticing begins, and as indicated, that's extensive too. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that we can't do anything that would be seen as giving legal or financial advice to people.
And I appreciate that, and that wasn't my question. Are there other people that you refer them to? Maybe like the homeownership center, things where they could get advice like, working with your mortgagee, plan for a sale, I suspect some of these are significant drops in income that you can't really make up for. You can parse it around for a year, and we'll get a payment, but like, God is a lot of these, you can't, in the long run, you can't make it.
Our biggest thing that we refer to is work payment. So if
Yes.
anyone's having any kind of financial hardship, we strongly recommend that they bring it to the board of abatement, and then board of abatement, we usually try, if they don't get it kind of abated, we'll see if there's any kind of financial assistance that might be available to them.
And it sounds like, you know, maybe there are some other resources that consult with Eric, and City Attorney Brown, of course, to make sure we're not overstepping, but if there are other places like nonprofits or something that we could refer them to as we go through this process, like, yes, we would like to do that. So you might hear from us with a follow-up email, because that would be good.
Our primary issue is that they're not contacting us at all.
Yes, yes. that's usually-
Yeah.
It's gonna go away.
Have you seen, you know, the work that both Tracy and Stephen do with those who own, when they are responsive or, work with us, it usually ends in a better place than the folks on this list.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll just take a brief moment to shout out, Stephen, who does, really does his work with kindness and compassion, and is often Catherine and I will receive notes from the folks that they work with, you know, this was a hard time, but you know, Stephen really helped us get through it. Yeah.
Any other questions on property taxes before we move on to gross receipts? Yeah.
Ask questions, thanks.
Sure.
Sorry, did I hear you correctly that our payment plans are typically only on a 2-year window, or do they extend any longer?
They're typically a 2-year window, but sometimes there will be a circumstance where if it's some type of hardship, they'll pay Catherine's approval to extend it a little further.
Okay. And I know our hope and desire is to get folks onto a payment plan, but in the event of sort of the nuclear option of a tax sale here, you know, if there's someone residing in the property that is sold, either as owner occupied or as a renter, there is nothing necessarily stopping the new owner of that property for a tax sale from taking possession of it, either as the owner of their new residence or from evicting the current tenants that live there, subject to the same protections that would be in place if any other rental property was sold. Is that right?
Just to be clear, that after the tax sale, the owners and the mortgagees and other lien holders of interest have a whole year after the tax sale to redeem the property before the property is transferred to the new owner. After that year has gone by, if the property hasn't been redeemed, then yes, the new owner can come in and exercise whatever rights a new owner would generally have in the property.
Okay. I understand the need to collect on delinquent taxes. I think that it's problematic. We have a number of parcels that have not paid. You have to pay. That said, I want to give voice to some pretty significant reservations I have with respect to our going in this direction. You know, my understanding is that we stopped doing tax sales during the pandemic, which makes sense. A number of our residents were facing financial hardship. Also, in the event that a tax sale was to result in someone losing their home, of course, during the pandemic, that presented even more hardship than normal. That said, in our current fiscal climate and all the related uncertainty, there still is a lot of financial hardship that's out there. I anticipate that as we go down this list, that there's at least some of the folks on here that are not paying because they can't pay. And I appreciate Tracy, you're sending along some additional information with respect to when these delinquent taxes are from. And one of the things that stuck out to me is that a number of them are from the pandemic years, when it doesn't appear that we were all that active with respect to getting folks into payment plans and trying to, that's my sense at least. I would appreciate some additional information about how actively we were trying to get folks onto payment plans to collect on delinquencies. But it strikes me that you know, on many of these properties, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, right? And so that tells me that perhaps prior to 2020, we were more active in when someone was delinquent, getting them on a payment plan on a timely fashion, right? And so I suppose where that takes me, in a roundabout way, is I would encourage us to, as we're talking to property owners, to, even though I understand the need for the revenues and the problem with the delinquencies, to extend the timeline of our standard 2 years and to allow folks a longer period of time within which to consider repaying taxes. And that's in part because I do think it is on us to a certain extent, for with good reason, not being active during the pandemic with our collecting of delinquencies. And for us to now sort of re-up that effort while also holding folks to the same standards that were in place prior to the pandemic, I think there may be some unfairness there from my perspective, and some potential real devastating consequences to folks that are residing in these properties. So those are my 2 cents, just based on the information that I have right now. I also, to the extent any of these are rental properties, I'm curious about the extent to which tenants are informed of the fact that the property that they're living in is potentially subject to tax sale. That's another question that I would have, because obviously if that can help to encourage your landlord to hopefully engage in some sort of payment program.
Thank you. Anything from you, Councilor Newbeezer, on property taxes before we move on to gross receipts?
No, thank you though.
All right, move on to gross receipts so we can make sure we get through everything.
So as of last week, or the week before, we had approximately $800,000 of gross receipts outstanding, owed by approximately 108 local businesses. We have an active payment plan from one business that would encompass about $15,000 of that $800,000 outstanding. We are doing a couple of internal process improvements, both with our colleagues at CEDO and also working with our IT group to centralize a business registry and house that on a collection software through the OpenGov platform that will be more user-friendly for administrative staff, and help us keep more on track with our collections, and I think share better information with the businesses that owe. Really, we are hoping to do proactive invoice generation to enable pro forma invoices to non-filers to go out consistently at a large scale, and to automate some of that legwork that currently goes into the initial contact of collecting outstanding gross receipts payments. We rely quite a bit, and Tracy, please jump in if I don't say something correctly, but we rely on the businesses themselves to issue their returns. And it is that we have a lot of business activity in the city, and businesses open, close, move, so on and so forth. We are hoping to have a business registry that more comprehensively allows us to see who should be sending in a return versus who doesn't actually owe us a return right now. So we're trying to speed up that timeline through some process improvements, and we're trying to have just a better sense of business tracking to be more complete and thorough in the information that we have and can analyze our tax collection, tax return processes that occur quarterly, just more in real time. We project that we could seek through these two adjustments an additional $200,000 to $250,000 per year, projected beginning in fiscal 27 and extending further. The better we get at using some of these tools. The last bullet I'll note is that we do have some internal resource capacity issues. And we are still expecting to see a return on investment once our business registry and our new collection system through OpenGov is up and running. We will hit capacities on our staff time and human involvement in the process. So I think there would be an additional return on investment, for lack of a better word, duplicating scheme.
All right, thank you so much, Brad. Questions on the gross receipts portion? Yes, Counselor Barlow.
Thank you. My first question on the gross receipts portion is out of the 800K, is that report owed that's reported by businesses but hasn't been paid, or is that unreported and sort of calculated by DFA? Like, do they say that I owe you money, but they don't prevent payment?
Yeah, it's unreported, that's just.
Unreported?
Unreported estimated.
That's unreported estimate. Okay.
Yeah, because we don't know until we submit the returns, what they actually owe.
We can follow trends and have a pretty extensive workbook of businesses, years, what we would expect, the quarters and the years when we didn't receive anything, and it is kind of a mishmash, but we have enough of that data to, I think, competently estimate to say this about.
So these are businesses that have at some point reported and remitted payment, but then either stopped or.
Yeah, in most cases, yeah, in almost all cases.
And then so that's that number's probably a little bit loose, so that's based on estimates.
Right.
Okay, and the next question I have, I guess, is about businesses that fail or move or whatever. Do we have an idea of who's still, like, if they reported at some point they were a Burlington business?
Yeah.
They stopped reporting, they're on your 800K list, but they've moved to South Burlington, or they've gone out of business, or do we understand that?
I can provide a little bit of insight in terms of what the ordinance allows us to do, which I think might help answer your question. The ordinance says that if a business goes out of business, the owner is supposed to file a closing return, and they're still responsible for their taxes, and if they don't pay those taxes, they're still responsible for them. And if the business is taken over by a new business, or there's a successor that comes into the same space, purchases from the former owner, they can be held responsible if the former owner doesn't pay. Also, to kind of go back to your prior comment about the estimated taxes, the ordinance says that, if somebody doesn't report, we are allowed to send them what we think they owe, and that there's an appeals process, and that can encourage them to open their books and if we've overestimated, prove that to us. Otherwise, what we bill them for becomes final due and owing. And a problem we've had is sort of a lack of really effective software to help us do those things and track those things. And that's what this new software will help us. I don't know that that fully answers your questions, but hopefully it gives a little bit of context for you.
That's helpful, thank you. And that's all I have right now.
Great. Any other questions from counselors?
I'm just curious, maybe how much of these businesses are personal services, I mean, ones that would be hard to figure out, you know, what I mean?
I mean, you mean by personal services.
The owner of the business is contracting themselves out. And I guess I'm not totally clear who's obligated to pay.
Somebody like that.
Yeah,
They wouldn't have grocery receipts.
they would.
Grocery
Yeah.
receipts are meals, alcohol,
Okay.
hotels, admissions and amusements.
Okay,
So thankfully, that would not, it's mostly new restaurant coming up, and so we have a good partnership with CEDO. And between our staff and CEDO's staff, unfortunately, without needing to require businesses to register in the city, that's part of why we don't have an exact look of saying like business X was open from March 1st, 2023 to February 1st, 2026. And that would really help. And so we are moving towards that. So you'll see that at some point.
is there a reason we haven't required it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
What's the question?
Business registration. Before our, like, the time of all of us in this room, I don't know. It's simply been a staff capacity issue, like it's something we identified probably 2 years ago. And we've been making steps toward, as something we need. And
So there's also no requirement for a
Yes.
business to register.
I guess I'm asking,
that
we have
requirement,
changed,
yes.
like, why? I mean, is that something we should do? I mean, we're not against that tonight, but.
If you're asking the CEDO director, yes, I think we should.
I mean,
And if you're
I think
asking
we should
GFA, yes.
set up the wall and talk about it, cause it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like an unreasonable requirement.
No,
And
it's
so
not.
I just,
If you're doing business in the city, yes, you
Yeah.
should be, registering with
so
us.
think about that and
Yeah.
maybe come to us with
Yes.
a proposal.
There's also issues with, are we requiring businesses such as law offices, accounting firms, et cetera, those people who rent spaces in larger businesses? So then would that be in the terms of their lease? Is it the property owner's responsibility to notify us, et cetera, et cetera? Well, if they're doing business directly, so for grocery receipts, let's say a restaurant and those sorts of things, we do have staff that go around and make lists of businesses that are open. We often hire UVM interns to walk the street and help us fill out our list. So that DFA knows what businesses are operating and can cross-reference and see if they've registered for gross receipts or not.
And we do use that.
And I encourage us to think about it, cause
Yeah.
we require all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think registering a business is as bad as some of the other things, like the planning and zoning and all that good stuff.
We'd also have to think about what enforcement that looks like.
Understood,
All right.
but I guess I'm asking that we think about it.
Thank you.
And
We are, and I like
Well,
that you are encouraging us to think
Yeah.
about it, so stay tuned. Eric, is there something you wanted to add?
I just quickly on the business requirement, terms, the answer to your question, Councilor Carpenter, is in part, the charter sort of hampers us because the charter is very old and it's very specific as to the types of businesses we can regulate and the types that we can't. So we can regulate sellers of petroleum and hay, but and menageries and vitrilene houses, but not all businesses generally. So it gets a little complicated because of that.
well, it may be a zoning thing, so let's just think about it.
All right, we do need to move on. Is there one final question on gross receipts from Counselor Travers or Newbeezer?
We'll talk about gross receipts later.
Sounds good.
Great, let's move on. Thank you so much, Brad and Tracy. With no action, we will move forward to the calendar year 25. Is it 25?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Corey's gonna come explain why.
Oh,
It's the, great. It's the paving contract budget amendment request. That's why, because I've answered my own question. Great. And I don't know who's here with you.
I'm Jack Keller. I'm a public works engineer with DPW.
Thank you for introducing yourself. I only know you under John.
Yeah.
Name with a face. right.
Corey Mims, Senior Public Works Engineer. I'm helping to oversee the paving program. Jack is really the supervisor over the contract, and then Caleb Manna, who's not with us, is the project manager active, doing the day-to-day of these contracts. So with that, I'll kind of let Jack. give a
Yeah,
little-
Jack, brief intro, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so essentially DPW is seeking to increase the calendar year 25 paving contracts maximum expense authorization by $450,000. This consists of a $200,000 V-Trans Town Highway grant, and $250,000 of general obligation bond funds, to facilitate some added scope to the CY 25 contract. The town highway grant was anticipated when we first got approval for the contract back in March of 25. It was anticipated but not accepted or awarded yet. So it was awarded in July for pavement resurfacing on Pearl Street, which is going to be completed this spring. So we seek approval to add this to our budget. And then Go Bond, we've got $2.45 million of Go Bond were allocated to the paving program in FY 26. Yeah, sorry, I get confused with this. But this past July. And these funds were not used for the CY 25 contract because they had not been allocated at the time of our procurement. So a portion of these funds were used for the majority of the CY 26 paving contract, but we are left with a surplus that we are currently negotiating with SD Ireland, our CY 25 contractor, about a change order to add about a third of a mile of paving to the scope of that contract. Yeah, so that more or less.
Just a little extra, so with understanding we have the CY 26 contract with COVID awarded, with also Great Streets paving going on as well. Trying to look at what the pricing that came in looked like, and also with the contractor we have working in town to best service the public of Burlington. And so when we looked at the pricing from the CY 25 and what we had for bids on CY 26 were comparable, and it seemed with Ireland already in this area doing the Great Streets paving, and underneath the CY 25, they were finishing College Street, Cliff, and Pearl Street as part of the paving. They're already going to be in this area. And so the added street segments that we're looking to add would make sense to also wrap into their scope. It is a good amount of mileage, but it is also comparable based on the previous awards to Ireland. It's still within that same scope, and so we felt comfortable that this would be the best way to use our existing contracts and to procure additional paving mileage.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm still a little confused, and I know maybe you're explained it, but this is part of CY 25 because these are projects that were begun in calendar year 25?
Correct. This contract was started in 25 and it got extended and it's getting finished this summer. So we extended the contract deadline on that on this award to be able to allow some more to finish.
So we need to make additional money.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from counselors? Yes, Counselor Travers.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'll just flag what I've consistently flagged when we've been talking about paving, which is we know that the last couple summers here, we've been dealing with a good amount of downtown construction, and a lot of faith placed in you all and your team to ensure that the scheduling of the additional paving here is sequenced in such a way that we don't end up with nightmares navigating downtown this summer over the construction season. Obviously, a number of downtown thoroughfares here which are in need of some updates. So I'm glad that we are able to accommodate that, but also trust that we'll be mindful of wanting to ensure folks are able to navigate our downtown.
Yeah, and I think coordination is kind of built into our contract and also just part of our management of the contracts. Helps that SDI is working both on Main Street and on this contract, so pretty easy internal coordination there. But.
Great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Are we ready for a motion? Yes, Counselor Travers.
if you will accommodate it, I will just move to take the actions indicated on Civic Park. There's a two-part motion that's listed there.
Yes, please. Is there a second? Great. Thank you. Counselor Barlow, any comments or other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And the next item is authorization of calendar year 26 sidewalk reconstruction and pedestrian crossing improvement.
Hi,
Hello.
good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Kenchlowski. I'm an associate public works engineer. And I have Maddie Sunder with me here as well. She's also a public works engineer. And tonight in front of you, we have the request to award the calendar year 26 sidewalk contract. SDI was determined to be our lowest responsive and responsible bidder for this project. Their prices actually came in a bit lower than we were anticipating. The engineer's estimate was approximately 1.4 million, and their numbers came in just over 1.2. This year is going to be a much larger contract than we've seen the past 2 years. We are planning for approximately 1.7 miles of sidewalk work compared to last year. For example, we had 0.5 miles. This is largely due to the increased funding we received, specifically from the GO bond that was allocated for us to use for this contract. So with that being said, this will help us meet that 3 mile of sidewalk replacement goal per year, which is the sustainable goal we set for ourselves. Last thing to note, I will mention we also included some pedestrian crossing improvements into this project. Again, combining similar work types, getting more efficient unit prices for that portion of the work. Being funded by a VTRAN small scale bike and pedestrian grant with a match from our transportation.
Excellent. Any comments or questions? Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, that is very comprehensive and no questions for this group. Okay, well, are we ready for a motion? Let's get some sidewalks going.
Move to take the actions indicated on Civic Park.
Excellent. Is there a second? Great, I'm gonna give that one to Counselor Carpenter. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. I think we've got both Scott and Brad coming up, and we've also got some colleagues from BED. This is the contract for our financial enterprise resource planning system. When we talk about this internally, we talk about it as the new world, because those of you who have been around for a while know that our financial system is currently called New World. And it is not going that great. I don't know, maybe we should call it Old World, but we are getting a new world. And it is going to be Oracle NetSuite for government. It is going to be a long process, but we are very excited. And this is an important milestone on that journey. Which one of you would like to fight? Scott, Brad's done a lot of talking. I will nominate you to give a brief overview.
Brief overview of the system. We'll start with New World. It's probably more than 13 or 14 years ago, the system the city was using at the time came in and gave the city less than 6 months to get off of that system and choose something different. So the city opted with Tyler Tech's New World. That's what's been in place since then. So about 3 years ago, New World, Tyler Tech contacted me and said, we've stopped selling the New World system to new customers. And as somebody with experience in the software world, that's just, you have an end of life at the end of at some point in the relatively near future. So rather than get caught in a situation where we're once again under the gun to make a decision quickly, we started talking about what we need, putting requirements and proposals together.
and got to the point where through that RFP process with, and in coordination with, our friends at Burlington Electric, we decided to choose based from all of the other options, Oracle NetSuite for Government. It was good pricing, good functionality, and the vertical is owned everything from Oracle. So development, hosting, customer support, training, implementation, everybody is Oracle, which means that we're not dealing with third parties or second-hand knowledge. So that was why we ended up, that's where kind of in a nutshell, how we got to the point where we needed to make a decision. And then ultimately through that RFP process, how we decided to get to Oracle NetSuite for Government. I guess with that, we can open up for questions.
Yeah, questions? Yes, Councilor Barlow.
So is the current system, is it internally hosted or is it?
It was for years, it's now in the cloud. It's been in the cloud for at least 3, maybe 4 years.
Okay.
And it's hosted by Tyler Tech.
Right. And this new is the SaaS offering by.
It's total SaaS, yeah.
And in your memo, you said that the current system requires dedicated resources to maintain a significant amount of dedicated internal resources to sort of power stuff. So you anticipate that won't be the case when you move to this new SaaS offering, but I also know you're implementing ERP system. There's probably a lot of front end consultancy that you'll have to incorporate into your project plan, and that's part of what you budgeted.
That is part of what we budgeted. We do have external project managers and change management professional as well that we're working with. Because it's not just the technical side, it's also actually how, as an organization, we accept the new workflows and things. The goal is to make a lot of what we do more effective and more efficient with the new system. And one of the ways that will reduce how much administrative time we have to spend is how we actually construct the security side. So the current system is, for lack of a better term, almost individualized security. So if you think about a system that's as complex as a financial system for a municipality our size, there's hundreds of different options to turn on and turn off for each person. And it was implemented in less of a group perspective and more of an individual perspective. One of the things we're really looking to do on this system is to go back to a least permission group policy. So, and then have that be something that if you work in 2 different groups, you would have 2 different groups worth of permissions, as opposed to taking your profile and giving you extra permissions. So that's one of the reasons why it takes so long. We spend so much time with the current system. It's just the implementation prospect or the implementation perspective that was taken 13 plus years ago was just a different perspective that we're taking now in terms of how it's administered.
Yeah, some of the other kind of low-hanging fruit opportunities that we see with this system is it's Oracle being so large and implemented throughout the world. They have proven integrations with thousands of different other financial vendors, be it banking institutions, point of sale type collection activities. And our city is quite diverse in all of the offerings that we have, and each department, it's maybe not every department, but many departments have very specific needs or have built on different bits of technology over time that help them do their business or collect money or pay people. Oracle's ability to integrate all of that into one platform that we don't have to spend hours and hours reconciling multiple different systems, I think is going to be a huge time saving as well as a big increase in our learning accuracy.
Right. Plus the additional ability from a technology perspective, technology that has changed over time between when that New World with Tyler Tech, even up until the point where they no longer started selling, they stopped selling it to new customers. the technology that we'll be able to leverage in terms of some robotic process automation and some other automations. Also gonna make us more effective and more efficient as we go through as well.
Makes a lot of sense, thank you.
Other questions?
This is the same contract we got a complaint about that you
Yes.
very thoroughly provided us, and I'm just acknowledging that you did respond to us and answer the questions that were asked.
Excellent, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? We ready for a motion? Yes, Councilor Barlow.
Make the motion.
Is there a second? You, Councilor Carpenter. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you and congratulations. And the last item for Board of Finance is an ordinance on minimum housing registration fees. Bill, welcome. Why don't you go ahead and give us an introduction and quick summary of this issue?
Yes, thank you, Catherine. I'm here tonight with the Housing Division Manager, Kara Simino. I'll do a quick introduction and have Kara talk about the details, but the Department of Permitting Inspections Housing Division is looking to raise the annual rental registration fee by $10. The current fee is $110, and it's $80 for owner-occupied duplexes. If this gets approved, the effective date would be a year from now, April 1st of 2027. That was done based on previous feedback I had when we had raised the fee in the past. The primary concern property owners have is they don't want this fee raised within 6 months of when it's due because they can't plan for it with enough financial certainty for the upcoming year, even though the amount is relatively small in my estimation. We're giving them plenty of notice that this wouldn't be due until next year. Kara will give some of the background of why we're asking it right now.
Yeah, good afternoon. So our rental registration fee is collected under Chapter 18, Section 30. The fee is dedicated solely to our division and the costs of providing the rental inspection services, clerical, administrative, and mediation support for the Housing Board of Review, and landlord and tenant resource services. After analysis earlier this year, we did find that a fee adjustment was warranted and necessary. The rental registration fee has not been increased since 2019, while budgeted expenses for the housing division has increased about 18%. Rental rates in Burlington have increased by 31% over the past 6 years in comparison to the national inflation rate of about 28%. Finally, we are recommending that no changes made to the fee for owner-occupied duplexes and partial unit short-term rentals. Data during my research found that those units make up less than 10% of our rental stock and require fewer inspection resources and have a higher rate of compliance from the property owners.
So we're happy to take the questions, but ultimately, if it's approved, we'd ask that this go for a first reading at City Council, and then the City Council would have a deliberative session. Happy to answer questions they have.
Yes, Councilor Carpenter.
There are two sort of ones. Do you believe that we're getting an accurate registration from short-term rentals?
We do, to the extent that there's a few that will have additional rental registration. I'm not sure if you've gotten an update through the city attorney's office yet, but just this week, there was a Supreme Court ruling that was in the city's favor that we are doing it the right way, and it's given the people who sued the city about short-term rentals some direction on how they're going to need to proceed. One of those options is find a different route if they want to appeal, but the main option, or I would call it option 3, was what we were hoping for, is just to comply with the requirements. So some of those folks have registered with us, but we've held them in sort of, I should say Kara has held them in hold status because they have to go through the process, but I think we've done a pretty good job of getting most, if not all of those.
Why would you treat them differently than, even though they're short-term?
We can't give them a registry because they don't actually meet the qualifications, they're not actually owner occupied.
Understood,
But. so
but they're renting, so they're, for the minute,
Right, they are technically in violation as they are going through this appeal process. So we'll wait to see what the response will be from our city attorney's office about how long they'll give them to follow the Supreme Court instructions, either to come back with an appeal for zoning, appeal through the housing division, or just simply comply with the ordinance. To simply comply with the ordinance, there's a handful of them wouldn't be able to comply at all with short-term rental as they are now because they're not truly owner occupied.
no, but are there not a group that are renting short term? I mean, it's one thing to register, it's another thing to whom you rent to. You understand what I'm saying? You have a space, you're renting it out, short term or long term, should they not be rented anyway? Or registered anyway?
Yes, I think that number would be relatively small. I don't know if Kara has a specific number, if we were gonna estimate what that would be. But we have a separate contract through post compliance,
Yeah.
who helps us to track to see who those folks would be, so that we can go after them, if you will, to make sure that we do that. So we cross-reference our information with the Granicus or host compliance to see that we're getting all those people. But there are a couple of them that even post compliance has not been able to truly identify because they don't provide enough information about their property to really identify themselves.
So we should report to you if we have
Yes.
suspicions, if you would. Okay. The other thing I just was curious about, you mentioned the fee being used for landlord tenant resources, what are those in particular?
So part of our annual contractual benefits are with the CVOEO, because they
Yes,
they provide
Yeah.
the tenant hotline and tenant
so
resources.
we actually compensate them for that?
We do, it's
Okay.
roughly 25,000,
Okay.
and then there's another roughly 8,000 that goes towards the Vermont Apartment Owners
Yep.
Association, because we can't give property owners legal advice, but the agreement, the ordinance is that the fees support that. So if someone has a question, just like a tenant, if an owner has a question, they can get a free resource call from the Vermont Apartment Owners Association.
Good, okay. Thank you.
Great, any other questions on this item? Yes, Councilor Travers.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Can you tell me whether or not in your review you think a fee even higher than $120 would be warranted given the administrative expenses of your department?
I can speak to that. So it definitely could be warranted and would better be able to support our department. However, with that said, if we were to increase it too much, we would see some pretty sufficient pushback from property owners. We already do see some property owners who feel that they are comfortable passing it along to their tenants. So we would see that increase then passed along to the tenants as well. At this time, we feel it would be best to gradually increase the rental registration fee to better meet the needs and demands of our department. And this is step one of that.
I agree with everything you said, including certainly not wanting the fee to be passed along to tenants. I would be curious, looking towards the future, not now, to understand, looking across the state and other like municipalities, to the extent they have rental registries, what they are charging. Just some cursory review online tells me that South Burlington, for example, is charging $150 per rental unit, which tells me that there may be some competitive standards, as well as obviously is supported by the budget of the department. So, looking towards the future, I would be curious to know what other municipalities are doing and how we can support you in establishing a longer term rather than are doing this sort of piecemeal 120 this year. What will it be next year? Maybe adopting a multi-year plan to inch it up with very sufficient notice to rental property owners.
We will be back, and Kara and I were reviewing it together and realized that it does say this is a number that should be reviewed by the Board of Finance annually. So we'll do our part. If I'm here next year, that we'll be doing it. I'm pretty sure Kara is definitely going to be here. That we'll be back.
Great.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Are we ready for a motion? Yes, Counselor Carpenter.
I will move the motion as presented on City Clerk.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Counselor Travers. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with no further business on the agenda, we will adjourn at 5:51. Thank you so much.